Greetings, Peter.
Doru.
The F word. Okay. I'm really honored and such a joy to be able to speak to you again. We had another conversation month, I wish, a year ago now. Yeah, but it was a different setting for the Theology Research Network.
Right.
That was a seminar that was very beautiful and got a lot of hits afterwards, actually. I think I'll show it just briefly to the viewers. And of course, hello to the viewers, those who will be watching this video upon its being uploaded. My guest is Professor Peter Bouteneff. Bouteneff. How? The accent. Bouteneff. Yeah.
It's the
And
one.
he's a well-known Orthodox academic in the United States of America. This is his official profile at St. Vladimir's Orthodox Theological Seminary. You see there, you will be seeing a summary of his prodigious activity as an academic, an ecumenical person, a person interested in the arts, not only in theology, a person interested in bridging the arts and theology, hence this discussion today. And he serves as Professor of Systematic Theology and Kulik Professor of Sacred Arts. And there's also an administrative role there, which I think I can grasp the meaning of, but I don't think that's very important for my clarification at this stage. You see here his interests. By the way, a few years now, I remember meeting Peter in person for the first time at Volos, yeah, when it was the mega conference of IOTA, the International Orthodox Theological Association, and I was glad to hear him live talking about one of his interests, ecumenical relations, showing how matters of theology across the spectrum of the Orthodox Church, Eastern and Oriental, can be considered in a more nuanced way, and in this way it can enrich us all. But just to finish with this brief introduction, as founder and director of the Institute of Sacred Arts, Peter has this beautiful podcast, Luminous, and many insightful conversations there. It's a delight to see the breadth of ideas expressed and the enrichment that one gets while listening to his guests, and of course his own contributions, especially when it comes to talking about AIOCS. Yeah? He launched a project meant to facilitate the understanding of various milieux, including Orthodox, yeah, the appreciation and understanding of the art, the music of AIOCS. And this is Peter's website, where again you'll find much more. You'll see his soul as an art, or the soul of an artist, the depth of theological thinking, the breadth of his ideas. Just briefly, for those of you who haven't had a chance to watch this, the Theology Research Network of the Australian University College of Divinity hosted Peter last year. This was a very beautiful conversation we had then. And on this note, let me return to my guest. Such an honor, Peter, and I was meaning to have you here talking about theology and art, sacred arts, and to share your views on the matter. Before we roll the ball, just to show my first point of contact with Peter. It was his 2008, I think. Oh, yeah, book. Beginnings,
Perhaps.
Beginnings, yeah. But I know what you mean. Yeah. It's always, when did I do that? Yeah. Um, eh, yeah,
That sounds right.
2008.
2008. Yeah.
2008, yeah. Beginnings, Ancient Christian Readings of the Biblical Creation Narratives, which seems to be a book that unfortunately remains of the essence for our conversations when it comes to what's Genesis, how do we read Genesis, is the world a pancake, or is it indefinite in its shape? How many days took God to create this marble of whatever, blue marble as they call it, metaphorically, the earth, and so on and so forth. And the wisdom of the early church as investigated, analyzed, interpreted by Peter. And of course, this is more than just Genesis 1 here. It's about all the beginnings, including the beginning of the paradise of humanity, and so on and so forth. So this is a book that remains, unfortunately, very relevant to conversations in our day and age. But definitely, it's amazing that we have it. And thank you once again, Peter. This was a crucial encounter for me down the track of my own career. The topic of today, however, has a different pretext. So Peter was the editor of this amazing book, Rethinking Sacred Arts, published at St. Vladimir's. And this is a beautiful collection, very insightful, analytical, lucid, and definitely helpful when it comes to making sense of the place, various church traditions across the Orthodox spectrum, but not only, allocate for the arts. What do they mean? What are the arts? Is there such a thing as sacred arts, and so on and so forth?
Right. Right.
Peter, before we get to, let's say, more conversational thing, would you care to share something about the history of this book? So, what prompted, let's say, your interest and this embodiment of your interest? It's one of them. You've written a marvelous
Sure.
book on Avopet and so on and so forth. But yeah, something like a background for this book.
Yeah, with pleasure. First of all, hello to everyone who's watching, and also I'm so grateful to you, Doru or Father Doru, whichever you prefer, for inviting me. But we've intersected in a few ways. You gave a guest talk in a course I was teaching with my colleague Rosica Schroeder last spring on creation in the arts, kind of bringing together so many things. And I feel like your interests very naturally overlap with many of mine, although you take it all in so many fascinating directions. I've drawn on your writing for my students and for my own self, and just so grateful for what you do and for who you are and the conversations like this one that you host in these different online venues. So it's good. It's good to be here.
Thank you for making me professor. By the way, I forgot to mention this, that Peter was one of my references uh, last year. So I'm indebted to you, sir.
It was all my doing, yes.
Yes, of course.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
If I don't have friends who can say something good from time to time about me,
oh,
I'm done.
no, seriously, that's all of us. We all need each other. And the academic community can either be heaven or hell, as I think you know. So listen, you asked me this beautiful question about the origins of that book, Rethinking Sacred Arts, of which I'm co-editor with Christina Maranci, who is at Harvard University teaching Armenian art and Armenian studies, and is just a marvelous colleague and human being. Uh, the book came out of a couple of meetings, little colloquia. Uh, Many of these edited volumes, they come out of colloquia, and they're just kind of hodgepodge assemblies of essays. Um, this was pretty well thought through, and my credit goes to my late beloved colleague Richard Schneider, who truly was a Renaissance man. He taught at uh, University of Toronto for many, many years, and as a historian, and especially as an art historian and a theologian of art. And he was very, very committed, among other things, to bridging the worlds of art historians and theologians, because art historians, especially, when they deal with what we're calling tonight, I suppose, sacred arts and arts of Byzantium, arts of Christianity, etc., uh, often the last person they want to talk to is a church person because, well, some of us never like talking to church person, but anyway, but their rationale is, you're going to spoil my discipline with all of your religious talk. Uh, Whereas often theology people are scared to talk to art historians because they're so secular. Uh, but Richard's conviction, which I shared completely and still share, is that there's a tremendous amount of cross pollination, cross learning that can happen. I know that, we learn from secular art historians, depend on them entirely. And we have something to say as persons who know something about how these arts are put into practice liturgically, etc. So his commitment to that intersection resulted in a couple of colloquia that brought together um, secular and believing art historians, um, and kind of church art people like the great iconographer George Cordis, for example, the great, also, I'm afraid, late composer, Father Ivan Moody, um, and other great artists and composers and scholars and historians, and many of them are the contributors of that volume. Um, and I think together they testify to that um, mutual discovery, as it were. Uh, one of the last thing I'll say before I hand it back to you is that one of the contributors to this volume, no, actually, he's not a contributor. He was at the colloquia uh, and contributed to a different volume that my colleague Evan Freeman put together called Byzantine Materiality.
Yeah.
And so Gary Vicon is a former director of the Walters Museum in Baltimore, which frequently had absolutely stunning collections of Greek, Cypriot, Balkan, etc., Slavic sacred art. And so he really knew about its curation and issues in curation. But he's an absolute atheist and um, not in any militant way. He just doesn't believe in God. And so at one of these colloquia, after dinner and after a good amount of wine, he came up to me and said, Peter, I don't believe in God, but I love what you guys are doing with this Sacred Arts Institute. And then he said, you should always have your meetings here or in a place that's next to a church that's actually celebrating the services, because that's what we all need to see, is we need to see these arts being prayed and practiced. And so I respected that all the more because it came out of someone who's not a believer and not kind of bought into the church project. Um, so that's a longish answer to your question of the genesis of that book.
That's amazing. Yeah. So conviviality is always the best starting point for everything. Even the
Sure.
gospel, yeah. We read
Yeah.
the accounts of the evangelists, and it all starts with all sorts of meal having together, uh, get-togethers around the meal, a table, glass of wine or whatever they were using, and stuff like that. It's the best starting point, and you did amazing, and your work, which I'm following, especially via social media, is amazing in this respect. That last point you mentioned from your atheist friend. This is so profound, actually, and it's a method that we've seen, somehow sketched back in the day in the 20th century by Mircea Eliade for the History of Religions, where he said, well, there's no point in telling to I don't know what native that his hut isn't located in the center of the world. Uh, if you want to understand what the native does, you have to put yourself in the skin of that person, walk in his or her shoes, if they wear shoes at all, so that you can understand what they are doing, the entire worldview, their ethos, and so on and so forth. And I believe that this is a very important criterion for making sense of what you call sacred art or the sacred
Sure.
arts. It's not just a matter of sitting at a desk and or watching an exhibition and stuff like that, where these things, these objects, these items are taken out of their context. It is in the liturgical setting that you can see art at its best, functioning in its most natural environment. Uh,
Truly. Truly.
yeah, where it's not just the mind that works. Okay, so I'm looking at that icon there behind me, and okay, so very well done, Panselinos, with 12th century, Protaton
Mm,
monastery in Mount Athos. Look at the artist. Well, it is a beautiful icon.
sure. Sure.
It is. At least from my viewpoint, it shows the humility of Christ as a teacher. Because many people look at that
Yes.
and they think
Oh,
it's the icon of an emperor. No, it's the attire, the attitude, has the bulk of
absolutely.
a teacher. The humble
Uh,
teacher wearing very dark clothes.
Amazing. Yeah, I've seen you on Zoom many times before, and I always look forward to seeing this beautiful icon. And I also read humility in it, a kind of a combination of humility and power.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
we think those two are opposites, but they're not.
yeah. Well,
Says
we,
him, says Christ.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
it is. Yeah,
yeah.
we just had the celebration. I mean, in my calendar, I don't think. Have you had your 1st of January yet? With the
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
you did. Okay.
we did. Yeah,
Yeah. The amazing association of images in the Gospel of Luke. We read for the 1st of January. The circumcision of the Lord, or the
yes,
celebration of the Lord's name. Yeah. Uh,
yes.
he's an infant, and then the evangelist goes to the events 12 years later, when a child teaches the teachers.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
humility and
That's right.
power. Yeah, great paradoxical association.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
so in the sacred setting, art is no longer just embellishment or an expression of creativity. Art becomes, part of something living, something alive, and
Yes,
and its
yes.
power is demonstrated only in that setting, less than in an exhibition. That's the way I see things.
Yeah, probably so. Probably so. I've come to when considering, let's take visual arts, let's take the icons, and um, there are so many different entry points, right? And I agree with you that the liturgy represents what we might call the telos, the aim, the goal of this, and yet none of us would forbid just somebody just glancing at an icon, whether in a museum or in a bookshop or wherever it may be, in an abandoned basement, uh, there's that icon, and there's the encounter with a person. And what happens, uh, even before you start explaining, oh, this vestment represents the color of royalty or of earth or whatever, before you explain any symbolism, what's happening in that uh, face-to-face encounter, you know, uh, outside the liturgy, inside the liturgy. This same Gary Vicon describes in one of his writings how when he had an exhibit of Cypriot iconography and they were under glass, and he said, every night the cleaning staff would have to clean lipstick and lip gloss off of the glass because pious people would come, and despite the fact that this was not in a church, it was in a museum, their instinct was to kiss it, was to venerate, It's so touching,
Wow.
It's what,
So the icon summons the liturgy.
yes, beautiful. Summons the liturgy. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. This is
yeah.
amazing. But see, it's all in the eye of the beholder. Because if the beholder
Isn't it?
doesn't have the mindset that that's an opportunity for an encounter, as you said,
Yes, yes,
then you stay on the, let's call it, aesthetic level. Is it well done? Is it great
right.
art? Whatever, but it's missing something, that substance of, let's say, or of the liturgical encounter, which
That's right.
actually doesn't allow you to just sit still or stand still. You are
That's
called
right.
to proskinesis, to
That's,
revere, to venerate.
yeah, yeah. Isn't that
Amazing.
something?
Amazing. So this is what people do in certain instances when
Yeah.
there's an exhibition of icons. Oh, look, I haven't, yeah, observed this behavior.
I don't know if it happens everywhere, but yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. It summons that instinctive response in cultures where, you kiss something that you love and respect or whatever. Um, I have an aunt who told me that when she was a child, she was living. Their parents were living in France, and they sent her to England for a few months to study in England. And she had these two little pictures of her father and of her mother. And by the time she was there 2 months, she could no longer see the pictures because she kissed them so tenderly every day, every night, missing them, so even a picture of a beloved person is something that she was naturally inclined to just kiss. Another very touching story. Um, and they're icons, aren't they? I mean, icon is simply image, uh, you know,
Someone's image.
someone's image. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wonderful. And so it's no longer just the experience of the mind, the analytical mind, and the experience of of the sight. No, the tendency to touch, the tendency to revere, to get closer. To say a prayer, to get in touch with the person represented there. This leads to a broader way of, let's call it, deploying uh, the sacred arts in a liturgical setting. Because it's not just our sight that is invited to this
yeah.
festival, it's
Right.
everything else. I move. Maybe in well, church settings, I can get the scent of scented oil of an icon. And then in the liturgical setting, I hear words, I hear music, there's rhythm, and everything in me, within me, participates. I don't know if
Mhm.
this is a what they call a synesthetic experience, uh,
Yes,
but all
sure.
our senses are invited to this
Yeah,
festival.
yeah, yeah. It's more than you can manage to take in. It's and almost by design, it's kind of like a waterfall of sensory input that you just sort of let it wash over you, and what needs to find you will, you know. Um, but
And so,
so much is going on, and so many words are being said or spoken too. I mean, it's it's almost like generally a wandering mind isn't what is encouraged in church necessarily, and yet it seems almost designed to, you know, let your mind wander as you fix your eyes on any given image, or your ears on what is being sung or said or chanted, uh, your nose, it's quite an experience.
yes. And I assume, and this is one thing I wanted to ask you, Peter. Uh, so, I at least the way our discussion sort of went, um, at least how that's my conclusion at this stage. That sacred, at least in this context, our context, the sacred arts aren't about a kind of artistry that produces certain items.
Right.
It's more a matter of what sacred art is that art that elicits my response that goes beyond the mental processes.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of it's one of the themes of the book you lifted up, the Rethinking Sacred Arts, is, what is it, and is it even a useful term at all? You know, uh, I'd say that there are a couple of options, and one would be the one you just said. It's kind of art that elicits a sense of transcendence, or of something greater, or of awe, or of reverence, etc. Um, Another definition would be art, any art that has been created with the intention of the praise of, or of evoking divinity, or evoking it's kind of, so the second definition would locate the sacred work of art as the with the intention of the artist. Is the artist, I can be moved to tears um, by a saxophone solo, over a blues, and I could be kind of summoned to, say, Lord have mercy, that's just so beautiful. Um, Even if it was a blues being played by Dexter Gordon or whatever. Um, but what about when John Coltrane, another jazz saxophonist, uh, produces a work of art called "A Love Supreme," and he's devoting it to God, and his saxophone is playing the syllables of praise of God. Well, there's something else going on there. Each of these can elicit the same kind of feeling from me, but the intention was different. So should sacred art honor the intention or the effect? I'm not going to decide one way or the other, but
Maybe we don't even have to do that.
maybe we
Thank you
don't have to.
for the nuances, you know.
Maybe we don't
Yeah,
have to.
I didn't think of the intention. So actually, sacred art isn't something that looks in a certain way. In the second meaning of the word, uh, sacred art is something that is created, generated with a certain intention that, say, points towards God, towards
Yes,
the
yes,
higher sphere, so to speak. And then what doesn't look like sacred art can actually be sacred art because that's
sure.
how the author meant it, or the player, the singer, whatever. So I sing a secular song, but I put so much soul into it that and because I don't know an ecclesiastical song, for example, a hymn, but
Right.
I sing it with the reverence that is required by any prayerful act dedicated to God. Is that something
Yeah.
that makes sense in this context?
I
that
think
many
it
other
makes
things can
sense.
be, let's say, consecrated by the intention of the author,
Yeah.
and their use. As you said, you listen to Con Campbell in Canberra singing every Thursday night, or playing his saxophone, and you begin, Lord have mercy, not because of the atrocity of the interpretation, but but because that's what it inspires you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's an attractiveness to that uh, definition, as it were, um, because it respects anyone's experience. It doesn't delimit someone. No, that's not a valid sacred experience. Like, who am I to say that, right? Um, but I think there's also within some disciplines. Uh, so, there's a Yale Institute of Sacred Music. So, sacred music is a technical kind of a category um, that will tend to be music that is set to sacred texts, like the Psalms or, you know, uh, in the Buddhist world, the sutras or whatever, so it's sacred by virtue, again, of its intention. And it's not a value judgment on secular texts or secular music. But in the case of sacred music, it's a category. You'll go to a record shop and there'll be an area of sacred music, and there you'll find, Bach's B minor Mass or Arvo Pärt, or you'll find, Palestrina's, Missa Solemnis or whatever, because they've kind of consciously participated in that category. But that doesn't rule out a transcendent experience that you or I might have from something else, you know? So it's one of these almost happily ungraspable, undefinable categories, perhaps.
Which is very useful because it helps us broaden a bit the perspective and understand that regardless of what things are, some of them what they were made for,
Right.
in my specific use or reuse of that thing, I can transform that thing into something good. I think that there's something, I know, let's call it ontological about this perception. Because, for instance, what's the world? The world originates in that initial chaos, first created, there's no order.
Mhm.
First created is chaos, mismatch of things, confusion, and so on and so forth. And the user makes of it something beautiful, makes an icon, makes a temple, makes a place to pray, a place to work, a place of
Mhm.
delight,
Mhm.
a place of catastrophes, and so on and so forth. So the user is very important. And in this sense, I think the concept of sacred arts, defined in a broad sense, gives us um, the idea that we can find beauty and meaning in many things. Let me give you a short story. I have a friend here in Sydney, a Catholic theologian and liturgist, Gerard Moore. And I remember reading an article by him long ago, must be like 20 years or so ago. He published it, I don't remember in what journal, but it was a journal article. Uh, but it was an approach to, let's say, Eucharistic experiences of an unusual kind. And if memory serves, he had one of the examples was a photo from one of the world wars, the first, the second, I don't remember which one, maybe the second one. Uh, and there were two soldiers, obviously blowing smoke and passing the cigarette from one to the other. And Gerard said, when I look at this, what I see there is the very spirit, the heart of the Eucharist, uh, about thanksgiving and sharing. Uh, I give thanks for this moment of peace when there's no bomb falling on my head,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
can share whatever I have with my friend, my mate,
Oh,
as they
yeah,
say in
right.
Australia, my mate,
Sure.
you know. And actually, Gerard says this is an image of mateship, the Australian concept of, say, fellowship, friendship, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
mateship.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and of course, at first glance, you are tempted to say, really, sharing a cigarette is a sacred moment and it's a Eucharistic experience. But then, if you put yourself in the skin of those people, if you walk in their shoes, as I said earlier, um, and you are really just enjoying a moment of calm between bombs falling on your head, then you realize that every moment becomes, like a sacred moment, kairos,
Yes. Yeah.
the kairos of the liturgy. And then
So,
whatever is exchanged in that setting is endowed with a significance and a power, if you like, that it won't have usually outside of that setting. This is how I see, for instance, this broader concept of sacred art, where it's not just how I paint or how I sing or what text I'm using in my hymnography. When, like the Eucharist itself, I take bread and wine mixed with water, which, by the way, is so silly from my viewpoint that we need a certain brand of wine and a certain kind of bread, when in reality, what the Eucharist is about is let's take these elements that we eat together, drink together, and transform them, lift them up on a certain plan, if you like, plane of existence, a plane or whatever reality, where they signify a bit more. They are enriched by that experience of fellowship in the presence of God. So
yeah.
the cigarette in the photo of Gerard uh, can become that, regardless of how repulsive that might be to non-smokers. Is this something that we can contemplate as, let's say, a
Yeah.
footnote at least uh, of
Of
sacred
course.
art?
Anything is possible. Anything is any anything is possible. I think so. Let's take the cigarette example, and that one definitely required uh, the interpretation of your colleague, of your friend, and through that interpretation, it just became a Eucharistic event, and that is very, very deeply beautiful. Uh, and yet, wouldn't we distinguish again by intention, right? The intention behind before even the act of the Eucharist, the making of the bread for the prosphora, the trampling on the grapes to make the wine, and so all of this is very. I keep using the word intention. It's very intentionally being uh, taken to this place where it's no longer just, oh, that's a Eucharistic thing. It is the Eucharist. Uh, so one can evoke the other in a shared cigarette amid the bombs, and there's something very beautiful and meaningful to that. But then there's also the Eucharist itself, which I mean, it's also representing something. It's representing Christ's sacrifice.
A
But
different kind of intention, an
yes,
awareness
yes.
associated with that intentionality of
And you
sharing.
accord each of them their respect, their different respect. And somebody just seeing a video of a Eucharistic celebration, they'd probably rather watch, a video of a touching war movie where somebody is sharing a cigarette. That would be much more, that would be speaking more to them than something that if you and I were to watch that video, it's like, I know that moment. And you want to stand up, when you're watching it. Um,
It evokes
yeah,
something because you have the experience. You walked in their shoes, as it were.
yeah. You know, as to throw another kind of bomb in this in our all of our definition, in my podcast, I interviewed a very special person who's herself an iconographer, a composer, a nun, and I said to her, what do you think sacred art is? And she was like, I don't even know what secular art is. Like, wow, you just flipped it. You just flipped the starting point. And I love that. For her, the what's the word? The basis isn't secular, which we then have to make sacred, in some way. The basis is sacred. It's like everything is sacred, you know? It's like to the pure, all things are pure, you know? Uh, and it almost takes some kind of act to make something secular, you know? It's so like, wow, that had me thinking. And it still, as you can tell, has me thinking, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's embedded in our scriptures only because we don't think the way you invite us to think. We don't see
Uh,
this. Like, for instance, Genesis 2 and 3, your other topic.
right, right.
Yeah, Genesis 2 and 3. Um, so, what's the big deal there? Everything is sacred because those people are sharing in everything and they are sharing it together with their Maker. And the secularization of the experience emerges when they part ways from one another and their maker.
Yes, yes, right, right,
Well,
right.
is it not what etymologically secular means in a way? I don't know. Not
Right,
necessarily, not
right. Yeah,
etymologically. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm confused today because of the water.
yeah.
I
No,
should have
that's
had something
yeah,
else. Um,
yeah. Where this becomes when you start mixing definitions, like we're doing in a way. Um, so sacred from the Latin sacer and
yeah, that's
hieros.
yeah,
And as Mircea Eliade would say, sacred means set apart, right?
yeah, set apart.
Set apart
Yeah,
for the holy,
yeah.
right? And holy itself also means set apart. So if everything is holy, and if the baseline of everything is holiness, then what is set apart? It's no longer set apart from the impure. It's
And
simply
from the everyday
it,
life.
it, yeah, yeah. Um, it I it would take a much wiser mind than mine to make sense of all of this and to sort of define it and categorize it properly. But in a way, I'm all too happy to simply have conversations like this where we hash through it all and where the spirit of this conversation and of our inquiry is um, affirming. It's affirming God and it's affirming human goodness and human good intention and human art and human creativity. That's in a way the main thing, wouldn't you say? I don't know.
Yeah.
Rather than it's not silly to try to aim at defining some of these categories because they are there. There is something different between, the Bible and a murder mystery, um, with some overlaps. But in the end, uh, perhaps the search for tidy categories begins to dissolve, wouldn't you say? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to articulate. But as I said earlier, water doesn't help me think. Um, sorry, being silly. Uh, but the idea is like in the liturgical wisdom of Father Schmemann, yeah, Alexander Schmemann. Yeah, well, I think in the Eucharist he says something like this. Look, what we do in the liturgy or whatever sacramental life and so on is not exceptional. It's not,
Ah,
yeah, it's not something that uh, we just now dedicate to God and it had only a profane or secular significance before. No, what we do, we just reveal what was already there. The sacrament is embedded
absolutely,
in the very matrix of the
absolutely,
creation, and so
absolutely.
yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? Otherwise, we become shamans, if I may say something a little disrespectful to shamans. But
Well, as a matter of fact, I have grown to appreciate them lately.
sure, sure. No,
Yeah,
no, no. There's, again,
Yeah, yeah.
but for
I
the
hear you.
purpose of what Schmemann is saying,
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
and I think he was so resistant to fetishizing certain objects or certain moments because that nullifies the what you just said, that
The
the
whole.
sacrament is already there. The holiness is already there. And we don't, human beings aren't creating holiness,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Sometimes all we
We
have to do is
just
get up
wake
and pray.
up to realize that it's there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And this is actually why we have these lengthy and complex liturgical services, because they are, as the Greeks would say, mystagogia. They are mystagogical frameworks where we actually are helped to realize what's
yeah,
there, what's happening.
that's
Um,
right.
Talking about shamans, I'm reading now a book by
Shamans or Schmamans?
Shame? No, 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 not. I know yours was used to be called Seminary,
Yes, right.
the seminary, Seminary.
That's right. That's
No,
right.
this is Seminary. I read a book by an anthropologist, and I think the other one is paleo something. And it's called. How is it called? Into the Neolithic mind. And there's a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
shamans there. And you know, what these people say, at least, is that these shamanic experiences actually are not innovating something or creating a sacred space. No, they are getting into that inner side of things where we realize that there's the sacred. So,
Absolutely.
in a way, our Eucharist, our liturgical mindset as Orthodox, um, is not separated from that
Right.
archaic experience where we need an
That's good.
entry point in order to, whatever entry point. Is it the liturgy? Is the Eucharist? Is it, I don't know what, hallucinogenic, whatever, drug-induced, whatever alternate perception of things, and so
Yeah.
on. It doesn't matter. But the principle is there. The principle is that the
Yes.
world is deep, complex, beautiful,
Yeah.
meaningful, alive, and
Yes.
so on and so forth, which we don't usually see because
Yeah.
of the secular, profane kind of
Right.
activities and
Right.
approach to things. And then we need to take a break from our secularity in order to realize that it
Yes.
was there. So the profane isn't something that pops up on a Sunday
Mm.
morning. Uh, uh,
That's right.
what happens on a Sunday morning is that we put ourselves in the right frame of mind, and to use again Father Schmemann's concept, you can't get the Eucharist or be part of it if you haven't put yourself into the mindset of a Eucharistic mindset.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
we put ourselves in the liturgical setting in that Eucharistic mindset, and this is how we eat.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and
That's
so from this viewpoint, we are very archaic in our approach to reality, but we don't create a sacred
sure.
moment.
Yes.
We
I think I,
reveal the
I completely
sacredness of
miss,
things.
yeah, I think I completely mischaracterized shamanism, and I think you're right that there's something within uh, shamanism properly understood that is actually very close to what we are and what we're talking about now, the
Yeah,
recognizing of the embedded holiness uh,
yeah,
of objects. Yet, I think to follow again, I mentioned Richard Schneider when I talked about that book, and his lengthy essay in the book is it asks the question about arts and about sacred objects. It asks whether the sacredness is somehow inherent in the object, or does it result from the use and the encounter of the object with the person? And he sides very much with the latter, that thing like if I paint an icon or if I write a hymn or whatever, like let's leave it to a material object. If I paint an icon, that icon doesn't suddenly emerge as charged with some kind of magical power. rather it exerts its power, as it were, in its transformative effect on the the person and even more a community of persons. Icons, um, if we think of wonder working icons or icons that weep and things like this, it's not they're doing it for us, not for just some kind of to change the air. They're doing it to change people, you know.
Yeah.
And they're doing it when people are there and people are praying and people are opening their hearts to that reality. Um, so I think there's something there too. One can speak of the intention of the artist in making something sacred, but the artist can never create a miraculous icon or, you know, it's the power of the icon will always reside in its reception, in its use.
Yeah, it has a potential that can be used or not used or perhaps misused. And
Yes,
it's somehow something along the lines of how a sign works within a symbolic architecture where you have
right,
realities that
right,
connect, but you don't see the connections. You have the sign, the pointer, but if you don't walk on that bridge, you won't get to the other side, and therefore you'll be seeing only the outskirts of the phenomenon, so to speak.
right, right. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
the eggshells, not the yolk. Yeah, and
Right, right,
mm,
right, right. Mm.
and you see, I started. Actually, I was putting myself in the frame of mind for this conversation, having what seemed to me at the time a pertinent and perhaps quirky question. Do we actually need the sacred arts? And now you mystagogically led me uh, to to refrain from asking that question. So forget about it.
Good.
Uh, and it seems that what we call sacred arts in this, let's say, broader context, let's call it non-technical sense, the sacred arts are part and parcel of what we might call normally a liturgical experience, at least for us Orthodox. I don't know about an atheist um, expert in iconography or sacred music or something. Yeah, but for us, talking about people who actually walk the walk,
Yes,
and
yes.
um, then the sacred arts are not insignificant at all. They are somehow overlapping with what we call the Eucharistic experience, the liturgical experience, and they are integral to this whole context where we are led by hand to
Mm.
learn and appreciate aspects of reality uh,
Mm,
that
mm,
most
mm.
time escape us, elude us.
Yes, yeah.
Wh-
Um,
Yeah.
when you first even floated that question and then commanded me to ignore it, whether we need sacred arts. I think if I sometimes reflect on the idea. I mean, there's different ideas of when uh, the human beings become human beings, in the course of evolution, when it becomes Homo sapiens, and you can apply that word sapiens, which kind of means wisdom, etc. And, one of the theories around it, one of the markers, I think it's 30, 40,000 years ago, is when you start seeing adornment and something that doesn't necessarily have a function like a tool, like a hammer, but something that is simply beautiful, and when you have
Adorned tools, even adorned
yes,
tools.
yes, sure,
Yeah.
adorned tools, adorned milieu, and uh, and simultaneously a sense of something other than the self, and in a way perhaps they come together, this impulse that I'm now suggesting in some way defines what humans are in distinction from other animals, uh, that it may be related, this impulse to adorn, in other words, to create art, and the impulse to look upward and imagine something outside of ourselves, greater than ourselves. And so, I mean, there's sacred arts for you, and the question of need kind of flits away, and it just becomes almost uh, many artists will, you'll ask, oh, why do you create music? Why do you do this? And you don't make any money. It's like, well, I need to, you
Yeah.
know, I need to. I have no choice, you know.
Yeah. As necessary as bread and butter. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
which brings me back to that book I mentioned earlier, Into the Neolithic Mind. And it's written by atheists, no problem, but there's a lot of wisdom there. And they said something. Look, every time we modern people approach these, let's say, archaic arts or what we call artwork, some doubt that it's even art in the sense of purely aesthetic. Like there's a an expert in rock art, prehistoric rock art, Jean Claude, and he
Okay.
says, can we actually apply to this thing the word art the way we understand art today? Yeah. Anyway, so back to the Neolithic thing. They say what we should realize that our categories of this is sacred, this is profane or secular, something doesn't apply, because these people, when, as you said, they created tools, but those tools are beautified, are adorned, embellished with symbols. We have no idea what those symbols are. We think it's aesthetic or expression of imagination or whatever. God knows what that was. Maybe the symbols, what we call artwork, made that tool more functional, more
Yes.
successful in its use. And this is what
Yeah.
these two atheist authors intimate, Williams and whatever, David Williams and David Pierce. Um, this is what they say. Well, our categories don't apply here because for these people, the sacred and profane went hand in hand, and this is something that I believe the concept of sacred art today, as you discuss it in this broader sense, can help us understand not only our liturgical space but human experience more broadly.
Right. Right. Human experience
Yeah,
more broadly. Yep. Yep. Yep.
which is such a marvelous, insightful contribution, Peter.
What's the very what?
A very insightful, marvelous contribution. Yours and
Oh, my,
the work of your colleagues. I mean,
ah, yeah, yeah. I didn't write anything in that book, by the way. But yeah, yeah. Yeah.
but everything that you do, with the institute, with the
Mm,
AvoPet
yeah.
project, with the book on pet,
No, I'm
the,
so
the
lucky.
recent,
I get
the
to,
recent, you had those beautiful concerts, in New York, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that's a
yeah,
religious experience for me.
yeah, me too. Me too. No, I have an incredibly fortunate and privileged person who is given leave to do what he wants, explore the arts, explore this theological, direction, that theological direction, just because it's interesting, you know.
It's interesting.
And I'm sure you feel this way too. You write the book that you want to read, right? Right? You write the
Yeah,
book that you need to read.
yeah, and sometimes I'm the only reader of that book.
And so that's all you need then. It
Yeah,
worked.
that's my sacred art, my niche, my entry point into the world of wonder.
Yeah, right. No, well, I mean, it's out there. The book is out there, and uh, God knows who will pick it up and be changed.
Yeah, amen to that. Thank you very much, Peter. Very generous, and
Uh,
as usual, very challenging. So you simply changed my mind. I fancy myself as a kind of iconoclast when it comes to church art. I'm very minimalist. Uh, but now I realize that I should actually revisit my assumptions.
Hmm. I mean, looking behind you, it doesn't look minimalist. It looks like a, a, a gaggle of icons and holy images. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but I'm still minimalist when it comes to the liturgical space.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Well, I think you're also one thing I love and admire about you is your love of nature and of the outdoors and the pictures that you post of the nighttime sky. And this is like a church too, isn't it? It's what we evoke, as you wrote in a beautiful article. It's what we evoke when we depict stars, mosaics or frescoes of stars on uh, in the inside of churches.
Yeah. By the way,
That's
I noticed in the volume there are at least a couple of contributions about Armenian Christianity.
yes.
Last year, I was privileged to travel to Armenia for the first time.
Ah,
Um, yeah, I got a small grant from an Armenian foundation, and I was hunting for stars. And what I realized is the beautiful aspect of continuity between, let's call it archaic or ancient Armenia, and modern Armenia through the mediation of Christian Armenia.
oh,
Yeah, I found clear and abundant examples of um, interests into the starry sky. So there are stars everywhere on walls of
oh,
ancient cities, stars depicted. Then you have a lot of stellar imagery in those beautiful, I forgot the name of those, like the monolith in C. Clarke, Arthur C. Clarke's, the shape of the monolith, but the
sure. Yeah,
Armenians
yeah.
sculpt them abundantly, richly with the cross and
Yes.
all sorts of symbols,
Yes.
including stellar symbols. And
Oh,
then,
beautiful.
yeah, and then modern communist era architecture embellished with stars. And yeah, so I didn't spend much time, so I hope to be able to return one day, God willing.
Hmm.
Uh, but I was amazed of this continuity. And so there you have it, a nation who maintains, this kind of appreciation for nature, and this appreciation takes a sense of, I don't know, familiarity and sacredness, so much so that stars are everywhere, even in communist era architecture.
Oh, that's
So I,
beautiful.
yeah, when I
That's
when
very
I when I discovered this, including very I don't know, unusual places, or perhaps not unusual, not maybe not for them, definitely. Um, um, Sitting in a restaurant, you see wooden pillars, in, let's say, more posh restaurants, whatever, and they are sculpted in stars, with
oh,
stars.
great.
So yeah, so there's a lot we can learn, and sacred art means a lot now for me.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks be to
Thank you.
God. Mhm.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's been
Thank
a
you, my dear
privilege
friend.
to speak to you and
I'm
to listen to
always
you.
looking forward to the next encounter with you, wherever it takes place, preferably in person, and if not, then online. And
Well, there's a
thank
God,
you.
and God knows if if we should meet, and when,
Yes,
and what will happen then.
indeed,
We believe in providence. Thank you,
we
Peter.
do.
Thank you once again. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.